Hello and welcome to a new chapter in chemistry called environmental chemistry. In this chapter, we'll be looking at the three major forms of pollution, which is atmospheric pollution, water pollution, and soil pollution. We'll also study about industrial waste and how we can reduce the same, and then we'll look at some new age concepts such as green chemistry. In the first major form of pollution, which is the atmospheric pollution, we will split it into two major parts. The first part is about the tropospheric pollution. The second part is about the stratospheric pollution. The reason we'll split it up in such is because the troposphere forms the major part of the atmosphere, which is within a 10-kilometer radius from the Earth's surface, and the stratosphere starts after the troposphere and goes all the way from 10 kilometers to 50 kilometers. Since the air density and composition is different in both of these two places, the kinds of pollution is also different. So first we look at the tropospheric pollution, then we look at the stratospheric pollution. In the troposphere, which is the air we breathe, there are several gaseous pollutants which are created due to our different day-to-day activities, and some of them are also harmful to us. I've written some different oxides that are typically present in air in less volumes or concentration, but if their concentration increases, they start affecting life on Earth. The first one is SO2. Sulfur dioxide is typically formed when you burn fossil fuels or when you burn different fuels, and SO2 is poisonous in nature. Also, SO2 leads to several respiratory diseases as well as irritation in the eyes. So whenever you're in any place where there's a lot of sulfur dioxide being created, you'll notice that the people living around there would typically suffer from either an eye irritation or several respiratory diseases. Another type of gaseous pollutant is NO2, which is typically released when automobiles are present. It is a part of the automobile exhaust. What NO2 does is it also damages leaves, which basically blocks the photosynthesis capacity of plants, which restricts their growth, and also is a lung irritant. You've already heard of carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide, and I'm assuming you already know about their ill effects. Carbon monoxide is very deadly. Why? Because if carbon monoxide enters your body, it binds with the hemoglobin and forms a much more stable compound, which means that it blocks the delivery of oxygen around the body, and there is no circulation of oxygen that happens in your body, which could eventually be fatal. Carbon dioxide also comes into the air when we respire, when we expire, as well as leads to harmful effects in global warming, which we are going to study later on in this chapter. So now that we've seen the different gaseous pollutants that exist in the troposphere, let's also see how they affect global warming, which is another important phenomenon that a lot of us are talking about nowadays. Before we do that, we also need to understand what global warming exactly means. You know that a lot of sunlight keeps hitting the Earth on a day-to-day basis. Along with the light energy, it also brings with it a lot of heat energy. About 75% of the heat that strikes the Earth is absorbed by the core of the Earth, which is also required to keep the temperature of the Earth in such a manner that a lot of life can exist. The remainder of the heat energy is released back into the atmosphere. Now what happens is in the troposphere there's a layer of gases present. These gases could be chlorofluorocarbons, which we typically call CFCs, carbon dioxide, methane, water vapor, ozone, etc. And if the proportion of these gases increase, they block the heat energy and do not allow it to release back into the atmosphere. And a lot of the extra heat energy that is not required by the Earth gets trapped over here. Now what happens because of that is this destroys the standard equilibrium that is being maintained on the Earth and increases the average temperature in all places. You'll soon start seeing polar ice caps melt, the number of icebergs reduce, etc., which are very clear signs of global warming happening. Which means that by extra release of gases, by say extra vehicles being added to a city, could lead to additional gases being there in the atmosphere, and these additional gases will block the extra heat, which will then in turn come back and affect life on Earth itself. Another adverse effect of all the gaseous pollutants in the air is in the concept of acid rain. Some of y'all might have been told by your parents not to get wet in the initial rains whenever the monsoons come, because they would have said that the rains are called acid rain at that point of time. Let's understand what this is. You might have seen a particular trend in all of the gaseous pollutants I told you some time ago. I told you about SO2, NO2, CO, CO2. All of these are oxides, and interestingly, all of these are also acidic oxides. Now, what happens when there's a lot of acidic oxides in the atmosphere? When it rains, there is H2O, which is water. All of these acidic oxides interact with water and in some cases with oxygen as well to give you acids. When all of these acids are present in rain, obviously rain is going to be acidic in nature. An interesting fact is the pH of rainwater, normal rainwater, is 5.6 and not 7. A lot of you might think that rainwater should be neutral or neutral in nature because it is pure H2O. In fact, it is not pure H2O, it is acidic in nature. But what happens in particular places where the amount of CO2, NO2 or SO2 in the air increases due to pollution, the pH becomes lesser than 5.6 and the rainwater becomes even more acidic in nature. And when that happens, that starts leading to corrosion of all the pipes through which the water starts flowing. When the pipes corrode, all of the metals from the pipes start flowing into the water, and there's several heavy metals in the water. The acidic nature of the rain also affects the aquatic ecosystem because not a lot of fish can then survive in that water. And you would have read about one of the interesting properties of this corrosion, which is with the Taj Mahal in India. And due to a lot of the industries around Agra, the air over there is quite polluted. There's a lot of acidic rain which is now interacting with the marble in the Taj Mahal. Both of them are reacting with each other, and the color and the shade of the Taj Mahal is gradually beginning to fade due to that. And that is one of the very clear indicators of the pollution in and around Agra.